You want it to be a functional digestive system to be able to absorb the nutrients in your gut. And a lot of times, if you overwhelm your pancreas and it becomes inflamed, because this inflammation, eventually, if it's not addressed and you don't get this under control, down the road, things are dying off.
I don't know who's on here tonight, who's going to be listening to this message. You've got to start listening to your body. Your body is trying to tell you, hey, I need help. And here you are continuing to ignore it.
How to recognize and recover from pancreatitis and carb addictive behaviors. I had to learn how to say pancreatitis. It's not something we hear about a lot. So tonight's guest, Diane Allen Greco, is going to teach us all we need to know about pancreatitis. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what it is that you do?
I really help people with, get to root causes of what their problems might be. And sometimes, as your audience probably knows, toxicity is an issue, or maybe there's some issues with food allergens, or even, we're trying to get our body in alignment and get things more metabolically working and be functionally well with our digestive system. And that sometimes takes some, navigating, because we all come from a different background. So I pretty much just try to work with individuals or families. I like to work with families because really some of that root cause comes from that family and our relationships with food when we're around that family.
And how did you get started in this? Did you have issues yourself?
I was dealing with issues throughout childhood, and I think it was more like overeating. I mean, there were six of us in the family. I mean, six children, and so I had five siblings, four of them which were brothers. And we were just foodies. We were big food people. The Italian background, pasta every Sunday, and my mom and dad both worked. And so I was the first daughter, and I was a designated daughter to do cooking at home when I came home from school. So it was like automatically I was like brought into this place where I was interacting with food. But it became an issue for me as, going through my childhood. I was a little bit chunky, on the chunky side. I had a lot of discomfort, but I didn't understand it was from overeating and eating too many carbs and things like that. Now, I was never diagnosed during that time with anything other than, my brother had like issues with his appendix, and my other siblings had some other issues, but I wasn't paying attention to them as much as I was to myself. And then I started having some IBS, acute episodes of IBS, and passing out. So I was doing some odd things, but that all started happening right when I started drinking beer, going to parties and things like that. And I was an exercise, like a gym rat. I was a walkaholic. I would like jump rope all the time. And I was doing a lot of things, carb binging, I would say, but that was pretty much our diet. Now, I did eat like fresh vegetables and things like that were thrown in, sprinkled in there, because we had a great family meal on Sundays. And I pretty much was the cook during the week when my mom was working. So she would call me and tell me what to throw in the oven. I was cooking chicken and vegetables and tried to do all the good things, we thought, but there were a lot of things that I would say that I was attracted to, or I leaned into a lot of the dairy products and the ice creams and things like that. And then the cookies, when that came around the holidays, then I was like having all kinds of problems. So I started having issues, and I'm going to be very open about this. I was having major issues with backups. I was major issues with constipation. So, then I was being seen by the doctor for that, and going to chiropractors and doctors, and, just trying to figure that whole thing out. Um, it eventually, I think it was like I said, as soon as I started drinking alcohol, that's when things really acted up. When I was a kid, I could remember, though, having some discomfort in my upper abdomen when I would play too long, or if I was outside too long or running. And I couldn't figure it out and then I thought, maybe it's my spleen. I wasn't sure. They were telling me different things, and my mom was trying to take me to doctors, and um, they really didn't have an answer for me. So then it started early that when I went into nursing right after high school, that I really started having stress related issues. And that's when the eating, I think, got really crazy, because I started working night shifts, and I was eating out of the vending machines, and I was eating whatever was in the nurse's station, which was candies and junk food that they would bring in, things like that. So, plus it was throwing off my circadian rhythm, and my sleep cycles were way out of whack. So I started developing a lot of dental issues in relation to, like, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm having this discomfort, that was coming and going. But I was like taking nonstop over the counter medicines to get things moving inside. So I don't know if you remember from the past, it was called Phenament. You could choose some Phenament, and it would make you go to the bathroom. So I was somebody who was very aware when I went anywhere, because I would go like a week or so without going to the bathroom. And it was like, it become very uncomfortable. So then throughout my nursing career, you were eating cafeteria food, and I really did. I ate what I thought was healthy as a nurse, but our nutrition class was just like one semester, and we really didn't go into, how food affects your body and how you communicate with food, and just eating, and some of the addictive behaviors around the carbs that, that we sort of are attracted to. It's automatic. So yeah, so I had some major problems then. So it was like I started with like the dental problems, and then I was getting all kinds of root canals. And so it was a lot of stress related things as I was caregiving and doing everything and working extra shifts at the hospital and things like that. So I got to the point where eventually, by the time I had worked in Pittsburgh and then moved to Philadelphia after I met my one person that was my lifelong partner for well, I wouldn't say lifelong partner, for 28 years, but I moved from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia, and then worked down at Philadelphia in Thomas Jefferson University Hospital there in their open heart recovery room. And I started noticing that there was more mornings that I was having issues. Just getting to work was a problem. I was having some problems then. And then once I started, once I got pregnant, everything changed. That's when the thyroid started slowing up. My whole body was like, I had more trouble, but I had 4 pregnancies, actually 5 pregnancies in 5 years.
Oh,
So I had
wow.
5 pregnancies in 5 years, and 4 of those were full term. I had 1 miscarriage in between, but it wasn't until after my 4th full term pregnancy, my body just crashed. I went into postpartum depression. I was placed on a ton of different meds. I was on antidepressants for 20 years. I was on, you name it, they were just putting more. I was having migraines and I was having digestive issues and I was passing out. I was having episodes of full, weakness where I know my blood sugar was just bottoming out, where I would like shake and have weakness, But there was 2 times I ended up in a wheelchair because I was just so fatigued.
The carb addiction, the sugar addiction is one of those things that we don't want to catalog them as addictions because we want to say that it's cigarettes and beer and wine and whatever drugs you want to put into that little box. But then we go, and I am, guilty, the first one, where you can see the delicious cake or my worst one is the Danish, like especially if it's got cream cheese and some kind of jelly. So, and I have to hold on and say, stop, don't buy it, and I struggle through it. So I don't drink. I used to, I don't smoke, I don't do anything. But the one addiction I have not been able to completely take control of is the carb addiction. So I would say, my goodness, I'm just listening to Diane, and I'm thinking it's like, oh, if we could just understand how bad it is and control it. Like if we had a magic button that can just say, don't buy it or don't eat it because it's really going to hurt your gut. Like your gut is important. So I do have to say that after the detoxes with Dr. Rani, I am a lot more in control and I have a lot more power to say no. And I also have a lot more power to eat smaller portions of it. So I'm in the process of controlling it. But that is my first question. If we're jumping to questions, because I want to let Sonia speak, which is, I know Dr. Rani has said a lot. Your body will crave what it needs. And if you give it greens, it'll crave greens. And if you give them, red juice with lots of berries, it'll crave berries. But if you give it sugar, it's going to crave sugar. But I want to hear Diane's view on it, which is there any other what are some of the things that she could tell me to stop this, nonsense of seeing that delicious croissant and going crazy over it? It's like almost like, oh, why is this happening to me? I don't want to have it, but in my head doesn't stop thinking about it, and then I just have to have it.
The worst part of it is sometimes it will take for someone to suffer acute pancreatitis, which is, when I wrote my book, I had to do a lot of research. I did like 20 years of research on the topic of endocrine disorders and pancreatic dysfunction and what's going on in diabetes. But when it comes to really understanding what you're doing to yourself and your body, you are in so much discomfort when you get acute pancreatitis that you cannot lay down in bed.
I know as a young adult or young child, I had pain on my, can't remember if it was my left or my right, and but then it would subside, right? So I'm not sure if that was pancreatitis or inflammation of the pancreas. I just know that the carb addiction is real. I mean, the easiest food to feed our kids right now, I just made quesadillas. Okay, it's easy, it's quick, it's fast. What do? When that's what, you try not to bring it in the house, but when you offer veggies, it's just not appealing to a lot of folks, especially these kids and husbands. So.
Yeah, and that is part of the problem because you have to find, what I found too is also with working with people is trying to just shift the thinking. I have grandchildren now, and I know that it's going to be difficult, even for my children to shift with their with my grandchildren, and they're trying to make healthier, choices. But pasta has always been a part of our life. So, finding some form of like pasta, I can tell you, I went through all the different, I went from one type of pasta to the brown rice pasta. My daughter and all my children have allergies. So that was another aspect of what I found out, is that I can transfer over my IG markers to my children from some of the allergens that I had and didn't realize it. And I was a huge peanut butter fan. I made peanut butter and ice cream slurries almost every day after school. So, I mean, that was bad. And then I would cook dinner and I would make a full dinner and then I would eat that too, you know. But, you know, I was doing all these things, but I don't remember, like you said, I don't remember if I ate breakfast. And if it was milk and cereal, which is 2 sugars. I mean, you got the sugar from the milk, and then, you know, that you're doing that. Like I said, a lot of dairy was like really incorporated because we ate a ton of cheese. And that's another issue for a lot of people. They want that flavor and to try to satisfy those flavors. But you know, when we're talking about some of these things, what you really want to, what it comes down to is what your digestive tract and digestive system is doing. You know, you want it to be a functional digestive system to be able to absorb the nutrients in your gut. And a lot of times, if you overwhelm your pancreas and it becomes inflamed, because this inflammation, eventually, if it's not addressed and you don't get this under control, down the road, things are dying off. You got dysfunction, you've got insufficiency, you got, you know, you're not creating your digestive enzymes. A lot of people are on PPIs, they're taking all kinds of things for their stomach. They're doing all kinds of other, you know, Pepto-Bismol, you've got it. Everybody's got GERD, everybody's got all these Pepsid problems, you know. So you got to just look at what are the natural and, you know, endogenous things that come from your insides that aren't working. And one of the things I really dive into is like pancreatic insufficiency. Why aren't you able to produce insulin? What's going on? Well, how do you get to that point of, you know, either becoming type 1 or type 2 diabetic? So, you know, I came up with these hand tools and I did put them in my book. So I have 5 W's that
Okay.
keep us aware of, you know, why are we eating? What are we eating? This is all in my information. You'll see it on my link tree. Where are we eating? Who are we eating with? And then when? So those can help guide you a little bit to, you know, what makes me want to eat this way? You know, what are that's connections to those 5 W's. And you might even have a different W that you want to tack on there or something else. But then you come up with a portion size, because really, when it comes down to eating, a lot of people just reduce their portions and there's a big change. You know, like I was eating 2 bowls of this and now I'm eating 1 bowl and I space my meal, you know, and it makes it, because you give your digestive tract a break in between to actually digest the food. You know, if we're forcing our body to eat large portions, and then, you know, when you're going through teens and 20s, you want to be thin and all this. It's not really about that, to tell you the truth. I mean, it is good to have a proportional weight to your actual, you know, what your frame is, you know, when you think about your frame. And you got to think about all the organs inside, the size of your organs. What can they possibly manage in one sitting? You know, a lot of people are overeating. How are we on time frame?
Stomach is like really only this big or something.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah,
And
it's
we're
got to
stuffing it. It must be this big. I wonder.
And everybody was like, you're the stretching of the stomach and like a gum band and all this. Yeah, well, that's true. But what happens is you start developing all these, you know, ulcers and all these other things that happen because you're filling it with sugars. And then it just breaks down the lining of the stomach. It breaks down the entire intestinal tract, especially if you don't have digestive juices, functional digestive juices. And that's in a good stomach acid balance. And there's where the problem lies. A lot of people are being put on these PPIs. It's taking away their stomach acid, it's stopping it. And when you start inhibiting natural endogenous, hormones or anything like that, then you're going to cause some evolving problems down the track. And that is where pockets develop and the leaky gut and all those things. So, when you don't have enough digestive juices working, or you're just overeating, if you're eating too much fat, same thing can happen. And you just wear down your digestive tract, and then it causes thyroid issues, hypothyroidism, and all these things. And that's exactly where I ended up.
It just seems like a cascade of events that just break, eventually your body goes, that's enough. I've had it with you.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
done.
exactly right.
And I'm going to put you in bed or make you
Or
dead.
pass out. That's
Yep.
right. The body it tells us all the time. If you start having cold sweats and hot sweats and you're doing back and forth, your body it's going through these massive changes because you're responding to something, or you've altered something in your body, you've done something. Sometimes there is trauma and stress involved. So those are a different part of it. And I just heard a great talk on PANS and PANDA. These are all the mental health issues that come along with diabetes and metabolic conditions. And I can tell you that I went through night sweats, nights. I mean, I was drenched and I was changing sheets all the time. And I had horrific chest colds. I had pneumonia so bad one Christmas, I thought I was dying. I mean, you go through some really tough things when you aren't in balance.
What I've noticed is once you start really focusing on getting out of it and using the mindful eating, and I know you're going to probably talk about that a little bit, that all those symptoms start to go away. And for us, a lot of us, Claudia, Sonia, we've all done the Dr. Ronnie Detox for Longevity, and that has made a tremendous difference because I've realized I can live without huge meals. My body actually responds. Guess what? Those sweats go away. I'm not always hot. I'm always putting my sweater on, I'm taking it off, putting my sweater on, taking it off, all those kinds of things. And I chalk that up to hormonal issues, but I really do think it was all related to what I was eating. And now I eat much smaller portions. There's no orange juice and coffee in the morning with cream. There's no coffee at all, no orange juice. But all these things that you're talking about, I'm sure a lot of people are just nodding their heads. This is the way I eat. This is the way I eat.
Well, you mentioned hormones, and it is definitely hormone related because insulin's a hormone, and there's hormones all through your gut. So that's the other part of it, is that I learned so much more when I went through functional nutrition coaching. I mean, with Andrea Nakayama, but I learned so much more through all these learning about the functional gut and how it responds to foods and things like that, and healing the interior gut wall, lining of the wall. So because that's basically where our food needs to go, and all that interaction has to, with leaky gut, if things are leaking out, they're leaking everywhere. There comes to a point. My sons always called it the meat sweats after they ate. And I was going to say, I don't think it's just the meat sweats you're telling them, because they would all like perspire after they ate. And I was like, yeah, it might be a couple of things. We eat a lot of carbs, and like you said, with wine, there are things in wine, and of course the alcohol itself.
I used to work for a neurologist. He always, with neurological problems with the children, it always seemed like there was a metabolic underlying condition that the body was not metabolizing correct in a way that it was affecting, obviously, the brain function, the neurological function of the body. But I think there's a lot of cues, like you mentioned before, that are present, but we ignore them for other things. There's so many conditions. I mean, Honestly, everything that you mentioned could be like 100 conditions. And every time patients go to the doctors right nowadays, it's a metabolic disorder, it's fibromyalgia, it's all this just, I feel like it's just a blanket statement nowadays. Like, oh, I'll just throw this at you because this will satisfy you with having known what you have and you didn't waste your time coming to me. But yet here we are, not really solving the problem, just giving, you know, like little band-aids to help offset these symptoms. Like you mentioned PPI. My husband he has a lot of acid reflux and the doctor gave it to him, but the doctor did mention this is not a long-term solution, right? So we got to get to the problem that's continuing to happen. But there's just folks that if that's the easy fix, hey, I'm going to take that route, but not necessarily my fixing the problem. But then you mentioned you're creating another cascade of problems that, you know, who knows how they're going to present themselves to where you're going to hit the wall, right?
Yeah,
That-
wouldn't we? I think most of us would rather keep eating the way we're eating because we like eating that way. You know, it fits with our lifestyle, our family, and so on and so forth. But really, we need to change the way we're eating. Is that not correct?
That is correct. And, you know, the whole thing that, you know, when it comes right down to it, it's our eating patterns. Like I said, taking those 5 W's and looking, where are you going to go grab those foods? Are you alone? Is it because you're alone? Are you lonely? What are these emotions that come with eating? Are you in a car? I mean, we were eating in the car a lot. I mean, that was it. We were just like shoveling food in, going to this place, going to that place. Just the kids are in there. You're just running around like a crazy woman and trying to figure out what to do. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is that pancreatitis. If you think about itis, it's
Right.
inflammation across the
Right.
board with, you know, tonsillitis, gingivitis, you know, you're talking about in your mouth, in your lips. Those are the beginnings. When you put lipstick on, that's a part of what goes inside of you. When you put anything on your lips, in your mouth, and your body absorbs things. But this is your oral cavity. And that oral cavity is the beginning of digestion. Same with the knot and the nose and the smell. It is all part of secretions, getting things moving. And so when it's mindful, you are creating a space where you're like connecting with your food. You're saying, I am going to sit and nourish myself because I love myself. And I am not going to shove this food in me because it's a race. There, you know, we're always in a race or we're trying to ignore it, you know, and a lot of times that's what moms do. We're so busy. We're just doing everything else, whether you're a mom or whether you're somebody who has like a farm. I can't even imagine managing a farm and taking care of everything that you need to take care of. And a lot of people don't take that time to say, how am I going to fuel myself today? And what kind of quality food can I put in my body to create fuel that's going to help me throughout the day? And we need that fuel throughout the day. So, you know, that's why during those working hours or that wake time, you need those deposits of fuel throughout the day to get you to the next place. And then at night, give that space for you to calm everything down because you maybe were going and running, calm everything down, remove that tenseness on your body, do your breathing exercises, meditation, and then you're able to sleep. I wasn't able to sleep for 50 years. I didn't know it. My sister was born when I was 10. She was colic baby and she was in my room. So from the age of 10 till I had my children at 50, that's when I started realizing, so, you know, people are sending me here and sending me there. And somebody said, go to a functional medicine health practitioner. And then it was just like, people were trying to give me the message ahead of that, but somewhere along the line, I wasn't seeing it all. But as a nurse, I didn't know. And it was just constant. I was involved in everything there was, you name it. I kept on saying yes too. And that's the other part, my other hand before we run out of time. My other hand is the 5 points of awareness. And
Mm.
5 points of awareness are breathing and meditation, the pancreas finger, which is everything that stimulates the pancreas, whether it's a drink that has nutrients in it or food. So that's the pancreas finger. That's the sleep finger. And that goes up when you don't sleep.
Trigger warning, everybody.
Yeah. If you don't
Don't
sleep,
shut us
you're
down,
more
Facebook.
irritable. A lot of people say it's the food, but it's a combination because if you
Mhm.
don't eat well, you're not going to be satisfied to be able to sleep. And then relationships are huge. And that's relationships with everything. And that's why it's the ring finger. I chose
Right.
that because our relationships with ourselves, with our families, with people that we work with, in our food and everything, finances, you name it, it's the relationship finger. And so if that's out of balance, of course, our chakras are all messed up and we're off balance. And then this one, which is the activity finger, that's pretty much about movement, getting our lymphatics moving. And I think that a lot of people didn't realize that, just doing that little bit of cardio, you don't need a lot. Doing a little bit of cardio to get the lymphatics moving, doing some yoga, breathing, and getting things in and out. These are all detox methods. Our body detoxes in several ways. It's the breathing, it's the skin, you're sweating. There's different ways that we detox. So sometimes we need to tune into that and understand, are we pushing those boundaries with ourselves and understanding, how much can I do? What can I do today that's not going to put me down? And using our vision, because a lot of people are on their computers, and most of my clients eat at their computers. And it's a huge problem. It's a multitasking problem because we're asking our body to eat, and then we may forget that it didn't really process that we ate, and we don't allow digestion. So, it took me, I would say, a full year to wean off my 10 to 12 meds and get into some routine that was, giving me some modifications throughout the day and giving me that fuel that I needed to have energy. My kids don't even know who I am now. I'm a different person. I was almost 200 pounds. So my body was so toxic. I was gaining weight. I was on Miralax. I was on all this stuff, trying to get things to move through, over the counter stuff. It was just heading in the negative direction, and pretty much I had a funeral plan all ready to go. And that was 12 years ago.
What you're talking about is going to hit home with so many people that are struggling, and they don't understand, that it is what you put in your mouth. You mentioned IgAs, right, in our mouth, those bacteria that are so important, those molecules that help your body to be able to digest that food or determine whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, all this information that you're giving us is so valuable. Today, I went across the street just to my neighbor. I had given her some Age Pro, which is one of our newest molecules that has NMM, which is a molecule that creates an enzyme, right? An enzyme that, because your body has a ton of enzymes in it that have to do work, and it gets rid of the zombie cells in your body, the cells that cause inflammation and everything else. Anyways, she was telling me she's been on it for like 3 weeks now. I go, how you doing? She goes, look at me doing gardening. She goes, I wouldn't even come out here because I was in so much pain. She goes, I feel so good. But what I'm getting at is, you have to start. I don't know who's on here tonight, who's going to be listening to this message. You've got to start listening to your body. Your body is trying to tell you, hey, I need help. And here you are continuing to ignore it.
I've seen a lot across the board: pancreatitis, pancreatic cancer, just running into people, like a cab driver I'm talking to, or someone that I was, met in a hotel somewhere. I just am shocked that this has become such a massive problem. And actually, it doesn't shock me. It's just that, you know, we're becoming more aware of it. And I just really appreciate you guys giving me the space to talk about it, because I was on a ton of pain pills. I just figured that I was meant to come through all of this to help other people. I said there's some purpose for it.
Real quick
Well-
on the black mold, I know that I've had one person that I've known, and she actually had to have a part of her lung taken out. I mean, how did you get rid of black mold in your?
I'm not going to say that I'm completely rid of it, but I can tell you that I've reduced my, you know, the symptoms I was having. The symptoms can be very acute. To tell you the truth, your body is trying to figure out a way, and there are binders that you can take that will help to get these the mold toxins out. There's some programs that that I've gone through that I'm still working with to learn more about the adequate proportions of things, but to get rid of some of these mold toxins and all the problems that they create, because they cause major issues with thinking, with processing, with all kinds of delays in your, you know, your alertness. I mean, I would have like a couple of days where I was very active, and then I'd be in bed like for the rest of the week. It was ridiculous. So, you know, learning about, like you said, the cues that your body gives you, and knowing what elimination really is, and what detoxing organs are, and if they're functional. So when I look at people, you know, everybody's at a different place, not only by age, but sometimes you're more advanced in aging because of what you've been exposed to.
Diane, do you have any final words for the audience before we take leave tonight?
Well, I just want to say that if anybody is out there in horrific pain, just remember these things about the 5 points of awareness and the 5 W's and your boundaries with life. When to say yes and no. And also remember that 70% of your immune system is produced in your gut, in your digestive tract.
So thank you so much, Diane, for joining us. Everybody, you can find Diane on Linktree at Diane Greco Allen. So this has been Feel Good, Share Goods, Real Talk, where we keep it real to heal. See you folks. Bye.